It's 11:06 at WPSL 1590, the talk of the Treasure Coast. You're on Ask a Rabbi.
And this is Rabbi Shafir Lobb of Congregation Eitz Chayim, your Jewish home on the Treasure Coast in Port St. Lucie. And a beautiful Friday it is once again. So welcome everyone, and if you'd like to ask me a question, 772-340-1590. So please do feel free to do that.
I'm surprised you made it in today with the heavy winds outside.
It is windy out there.
Yeah,
I was actually thinking about that. I'm thinking about that in a couple of, in many different ways. That's why there are mangoes in a basket or a bag over here for all of you to enjoy.
They were
because
blown
the
out.
wind is blowing them out of the tree. But that's what happened last year. That the first batch was much like this one. I have one that's ripe, and all the rest are very, very green. But they'll ripen, as you know.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
So
and they're
the
so
mangoes,
tasty last year.
Yeah, the mango season has started. And it was an interesting thing. As I pulled out of my drive and started to come, I noticed the mangoes on my neighbor across the street's tree are different mangoes. So there might be a mango swapping going on in our neighborhood.
Cool.
So
Good stuff.
I've got two
All
different
right.
kinds of mangoes, and I've got some seeds, not very many left because we've been selling them, but some red mangoes that are also tasty.
So how is your online sales going there for?
Well, that ended. It ended May 15th for the spring bulb season.
Okay.
Now, we do have an in-person plant sale on the 30th at the
Community
Center, thank you, on Aroso, and that, of course, is Sunday from 2 to 5 on the 30th. So please do come and join. We've got so many different plants that we've never had before. We've got some fuchsias, we've got some patented varieties of plants, and we've got some purslanes. We've got a whole bunch of different things, Swedish ivy, and some common things and some very not common things, and some bulb plants. And we've got a wandering Jew called Baby Bunny Bellies, which is the wandering Jew family.
Can you say that on
just
on
about
the radio?
Baby Bunny Bellies? Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And it's a fuzzy one. It's a very, very fuzzy.
Is this a joke?
No, this is very
This is
serious.
real.
Yeah, I should have brought one in to show you. So we've got some of those.
Okay.
And, we've got many different kinds of things. Yeah, lots of different things going on.
Yeah, we planted a couple new plants out front of the house, and, poor things have just been buffeted with winds all this week, and it's like, oh, no, they're barely holding on. Yeah, it's crazy out there.
Yeah, it is breezy, and I'm very, very pleased to, so far, I picked wire shelving to hold the plants, and so far that has been a good choice. We do not appear to have much wind challenge because, of course, the wind goes through the wires and doesn't meet the resistance to flop over.
Sure.
Which I hope it continues that way. Otherwise, I'm going to have devastation on my back porch. But
don't want that.
No, I don't want that. So just a ton of different things are going on that we'll have for that sale. And looking
End
forward
of the
to
month.
it.
Yeah.
End of the month. And this Friday is Third Friday, as we've discussed before, and we are once again able to give some hot meals to our first responders, and we're pretty excited about that.
Good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, that has been every single Third Friday that we have done. We missed, there's twice we didn't do Third Friday because of the holiday schedule overlapping it. And one of those was Passover, and the firefighters did get Passover meals.
Oh, okay.
So,
cool.
Yeah. They didn't get the full ritual meal, but they got hot meals.
Yeah, well, hey.
And, kind of excited about that. That's one of we try to do things that we can in our community. I think that's a very important part for Congregation Eitz Chayim. We want to be part of the larger community. we want to be contributing to that in many ways. So, and unfortunately, we're a small congregation, so we're not very powerful, but
that'll come someday.
Do what we do.
Yeah,
we do what we can and
keep growing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and we'll go from there. Yeah. You grow one step at a time, baby steps.
There you go.
And who would have thought it? We're coming up. It's been a whole lot of years. Been a whole lot of years. I'm trying to think right now. It says 5 or 6, and I'm a little bit. Well, I know we've done 5. I'm trying to figure out if we've done 6, and this will be 7. But we're somewhere like I know we've done 5. I've got to think back.
A young congregation.
Yeah, we are a young congregation.
Yeah.
And we've got all different ages, which is part of what I love. One of my favorite pictures from our very first open house that we ever had shows I don't know, he's probably about 8 years old, a young lad, and he's with one of our octogenarians, and they're working on Legos together. And it was a picture.
I love it.
Got.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And and that's the piece about our congregation that I love. It's not any one generation. It's multi-generational. And that way the young folks get to be in and around older folks, and the older folks get to be in and around younger folks. And they learn from each other and they interact with each other. And I know that Stuart talked about the woman who so loved kids that it helped her deal with her disabilities. And I think that's true, that when older folks work with younger kids, they get a whole different set of joys.
Even, when Stuart was talking about that, I just thinking about, even in my limited capacity, in dealing with the kids at IRSC, because for obvious reasons, I don't interact with the players that often, but they keep you young. I mean, riding the buses with them and stuff like that, they do keep you young. Yeah. And there's something special about that. It's a neat feeling.
Yeah.
It really is.
And Stuart mentioned also liking the university or college campus and environment, and of course, with my teaching,
you're there.
I'm there. I definitely enjoy that part of teaching, is being with the younger minds that are just discovering the world and hopefully learning that they don't have all the answers. Right.
The operative word is hopefully.
Well, it is. It's one of the things that I do is I work with B'nai Mitzvah. I work with youth between 11 and 13 a lot, because they're getting ready and they're preparing for their celebrations for becoming a bar or bat mitzvah. Mm-hmm. And I've got one right now that's really quite interesting, because he knows everything about everything in the world.
What?
Yeah. And he's, and I chuckle, and I it's all I can do. Because, here he is. He's telling me how psychology works. He's telling me how the brain works. And I'm like, I hope you can change that by the time you get to college so that you can pass your psychology tests.
Yeah, maybe you can graduate from Stanford when you're 14.
There you go. And, that's not to say that there aren't students who do that, of course.
Yeah.
Right.
There was that one story I saw on CNBC. This 8-year-old that was apparently going to the University of Connecticut. I'm thinking, oh my God, are you kidding me? 8 years old, but brilliant kid.
Yeah.
But, Carol talks about, skipping a year and just going through Indiana University in just 3 years. But socially,
there's a price that's paid.
Yes, that's what she said.
There's a price that's paid.
Yeah. Yeah, because she wasn't with her own age group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, your brain may be advanced and you might be able to handle the work. You may not be as good at the social pieces. Because, again, whether you're a genius or not, you're still shaping that prefrontal cortex.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a really hard thing for a child to accept that their brain is really, really not formed yet.
Right. And I think the big challenge for a lot of the kids now, those stupid phones.
Yeah. Well,
they're buried in all the time.
The reality is that there are and have been. Oh, I'll bet that sounded really good. Okay.
Oh, folks on the internet are going to have an interesting time there.
That they will.
She's adjusting on the fly here.
Yep, and that always makes a lot of rustle noise, so sorry about that, folks. But, even when you can handle the algebra, the reading, the retention, the comprehension, the language, whatever it is that you're doing to be advanced, you still have only a partially formed brain. That is something we cannot change, even with the all of the growth hormone that kids are imbibing. Phones and flat screens, absolutely a big threat to kids. The biggest threat that the screen and the tablet and the phone are, it's much easier for a parent when the kid is active to throw them in front of a screen and let them play on the screen, watch a video, etc. What that doesn't do is build eye-hand coordination. There is a phenomena going on right now, and that is a major concern for brain development, which is what are called screen kids. And those are kids whose the bulk of the toys, because think about it a minute, if all you've got is a tablet and a couple of a Wii or something, whatever, they might be really nice screen toys. But mom doesn't have to pick up blocks. Mom doesn't have to pick up Legos. There's no walking across the toys in the middle of the night. When one of my favorite stories from my husband is a story of his father walking across his bedroom in the middle of the night to open or close a window without turning on the light so as to not wake the kid, and tramping on assorted things.
Train tracks, blocks. Oh, yeah, there's all sorts of hazards out there.
There's definitely hazards in a kid's, and throughout the house.
Oh, sure.
As a result of that.
Yeah.
And so there's constant having to pick up and teach that behavior. But the flat screen, if you think about it a minute, think of a basketball player. There's no way to shoot a ball into a hoop on the screen. Yeah, you can flick the finger and you can aim it. You can learn the gymnastics, if you will, of the screen and the program, but they're not real.
Yeah.
It's not going to help you put an actual basketball in an actual basket.
What's interesting, we were watching CNBC the other night, and a story on vision problems now. Mm-hmm. With real young kids that never, I shouldn't say never, but I mean that hardly ever had problems at looking at the age level before, and it's the screens, whether it's the phones, whether it's the tablets, whatever it is. Like you say, easy to put a 2-year-old in front of a tablet.
Yeah, and they sit there and they
play
play with it. Because they'll play with whatever's put in front of them.
And those are high-res screens, no matter how you slice and dice it, and that affects the eyes.
The other thing that I'm seeing with kids now is a need to have to get really close to things to see it, and that's probably related.
Yeah.
That's probably related. Yeah. I think vision, we're going to see a whole new gamut of vision problems from screen kids.
Yeah. Wow. But they're actually calling them screen kids now.
Yep, that's what they call it, screen kids.
Wow.
As a matter of fact, Sharon from Tucson says, I have so many stories about screen kids. That's her comment. She's a teacher in Tucson.
We got to get her to zoom in.
We can do that one time.
We'll have to do that.
So, and because it is a major phenomena that teachers are having to deal with. And it's probably I devote one lecture when I'm doing human development to that issue because it's that serious.
Wow.
It just is. And because, all of my students may not go on to be psychology majors, but they are all going to be connected to kids in one way or another down the road. Yeah, even if they don't have their own kids, they'll influence other kids and other parents. So it's important to have some of that understanding of why that works. The simple act of building a brick tower teaches you so much. It also affects some of the development stages that Piaget talks about, which is permanence, right? Does a thing continue to exist when you don't see it? That's a development stage, to recognize that, if the ball is behind the tree, there's still a ball.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
And, right, because the little kids, the ball is gone. It
just disappeared. Yeah.
It's gone. It suddenly reappears. How? It suddenly appeared. It's not. No, it rolled out.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that's a development stage.
Well, and you think about it's funny, the blocks, the Lego type thing. Our grandson was just the ultimate Lego kid. Mm-hmm. And of course now he's an engineering student at Eastern Washington University. It's like, okay, this is amazing that fast forward 18 years, bingo.
Well, I think that a lot of kids show what they want, what resonates with them early on. One of the things that I did as a kid, a little bit different for a young girl, I love to build model airplanes.
Wow.
And
then you became a pilot.
And I became a pilot.
Wow.
So, yeah, right. So it's not surprising that certain things resonate with other kids, like dinosaurs or, I'm working with a young boy now teaching reading, because I tutor reading and a variety math and a variety of other things. I've got this weird hodgepodge. This weird hodgepodge of stuff that I do. But he particularly likes dragons and dinosaurs.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So we're having fun with that. And so here's the piece, right? When I teach reading to a student, to a young person, then I want to get books that are about the subjects that they like, right? Because if I took this kid who loves dinosaurs and dragons and I gave him a book about cats and dogs, it might be fun, but it's not gonna capture him the way a story about two dragons playing on a mountaintop is gonna catch him. It might teach the same things. It might be the same story, right? Because here I go as a Star Trek fan from millennia ago. That really was a Wild West kind of story.
Sure, it was. Yeah,
but it was cast on a ship. And so if you were into space, it captured you. And, yeah, it definitely was a Wild West kind of story. And, and all those other miscellaneous shows of my youth. So, yeah.
Interesting.
What resonates with a young person is likely to have a big influence on what resonates with them as an adult. And the hardest part, I think, with learning is to teach people to be open to new information. That is probably one of the ultimate stages of development, to recognize that I don't recognize everything. I don't know everything. I certainly don't. There isn't a day that I'm not Dr. Googling and, or Binging or whatever, that I'm not looking this up and watching that and comparing. And that's another piece, right? Don't just take what the first person you talk to says about something, but compare it. Right? Compare the bits and pieces across things, because you're going to find that even scriptures contradicts itself and argues with itself.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Sure.
We often quote that they shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. But there's also a section in Scripture that says just the opposite. Right? There will be a time when people have to take their pruning hooks and make them into spears. And, Ecclesiastes deals with it, right? There's a time to build up and a time to tear down.
I bet you could even write a song.
Oh, you know.
Ecclesiastics. Oh.
Yeah. To everything. What can I say? So it sounds like we have somebody?
Yes, we do.
All right. Who do we have?
Let's see. I think it's Charlie,
Charlie?
Charlie?
Okay, hi there, Charlie.
Yeah, how are you?
Thank you for calling, Charlie.
Yeah, well, I enjoy your show. I catch you on occasion. I'm getting a lot of feedback. Maybe I should try to take my speaker off.
Yeah, that's
better.
Yeah, that's much better.
Okay, because I'm a Vietnam vet, so I don't hear all that well.
Thank you for your service.
But I did go to Stony Brook State University in New York.
Mm-hmm.
I became a teacher, early childhood specialist. My question to you, I taught for 1 year, not a big deal, 4th grade. But I student taught kindergarten and all of that. I love children. But anyway, my question is, what do you think about this critical race theory that because a child's brain is absorbing all this information, and I do not believe that a child is born innately racist.
I agree with you, Charlie.
That's kind of what this whole thing is about.
Okay, so Charlie is asking about racism. Is a child born inherently racist? And
I don't believe they are.
The simple answer is no, they don't. I talked about it a show or two ago. There was a National Brotherhood Week in the 50s where Rodgers and Hammerstein did a newsreel. That's how old it is, and you can find it on YouTube, the actual newsreel. But they have one of the characters, the guy who sang it on Broadway, who was the lieutenant or something on South Pacific, and he sings that song. You have to be taught. You have to be carefully taught.
Of course.
Right.
Teach your children well.
Yeah, you have to be taught before you are 6 or 7 or 8 to like the people your relatives like.
Let me just jump in and say, I grew up in White Long Island. There was one child that was a black kid. We never really thought about color. We never talked about religion. Kids are kids. Kids play. Kids have a good time.
Yeah.
And what's going on in our world, in America, I believe, and I'd like to hear your opinion of this, I think that a lot of the world is laughing at America. We're screwing ourselves up. We're not using the common sense that God gave us when we were born,
Okay, so
obviously you need parents to teach.
Yeah.
But children are not born inherently racist. They're taught to be racist.
You're absolutely right. We teach many things. We teach them both consciously and unconsciously, mostly unconsciously. So for those that are on my Facebook feed,
that's called body language.
Well, that's part of it. It's even more than that, and I'll explain it in a second. I just want to reiterate your question for the folks who don't hear the feed from your call, and that is a question about how and why when kids don't see black and white, because they don't, right? There's always the famous story of the little black and the little white kid sitting there and saying, we have to wear different colored ribbons so people can tell us apart.
There you go.
Right.
There you go.
Because they don't get it. And I am reminded of my father of blessed memory, who, when he was describing somebody to somebody, describing the person standing in front of him to somebody on the phone, and at one point the person on the phone asked the skin color of the person that my father was talking to. And my father actually had to look up and look at him to get it, to see what to answer that question, because it made that little of an imprint on him. Now,
Yeah.
there is
I'll
one.
just,
There is.
I'll
Yeah.
just leave you with one
Okay.
thought,
Yeah.
and then I'll get off because I'll listen on the radio. But as a teacher, years and years ago, there was an experiment some teacher did where
Yes.
she decided that all the
Blue-eyed kids and the brown-eyed
are
kids.
the
Yes.
smart ones, and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And you can easily sway. I taught sales. I trained salespeople. That's what I went into.
Yeah.
Okay. And a good salesperson doesn't sell; they teach.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay. I used to teach my clients.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, God love you. I enjoy your show.
Thank you.
And my mother used to say, she was a Baptist. I went to a Methodist church as a child, Cold Spring Harbor, Whaling Museum Church, or Whaling Church.
Okay.
But I told her, Mom, I think that Jesus was a disciple. And she says, Charlie, you're really a Jew. So I have a lot of leanings both ways. I just love people.
And then,
Okay.
that's the best thing to be. Thank you, Charlie. Thank
There
you for your
go.
call.
God love you.
And so a little bit of Charlie's history there for the folks on Facebook. And again, his comment. He cited a famous experiment that I think it was a second grade teacher, either second, third, or fourth, somewhere in there. But yeah, you can find it on YouTube. I show it actually to my students. I just can't remember the name of the teacher right now because I'm so wonderful with names. But she basically started an experiment, and the first day, she either brown eyes or blue eyes were better than the other color of eyes. Oh. And whichever group was in the down, she made them wear a certain collar. And she said, this is the piece that really gets me out of this experiment. You can find it on YouTube. She talks about it, and they made actually videos about it. She had to terminate the experiment early because the kids were getting too nasty to each other.
Ooh.
And so, but she would say things like, whichever color eye was down that day, that they were stupid, they couldn't do things right, and da-da-da-da. And here's the piece about what she said and what she did. The kids who were on the downside read poorly. They didn't answer questions correctly.
Wow.
Their performance dropped dramatically. And then when they were on top, their performance on those tasks was much greater. There was the difference just based on this very artificial social strata that she created, not only changed the way the kids interacted, but it changed the way the kids interacted with themselves.
Sounds like their thinking patterns are all messed up.
It affects the confidence. It affects so much.
Yeah, if you tell somebody you're worthless, yeah.
You are doing, we really need to recognize that is abusive. It is so abusive to say to somebody that you're not capable of something. And, I've always appreciated that when I was 3 years old, and according to family history, I announced that I was going to be a rabbi. And, here I am, a little girl running around. And my father never said to me, you can't do that because you're a woman. What he said to me is, you're going to have to work really, really hard to make that happen. And, now I really appreciate what he was doing. He was setting a very high bar for me. And telling me, his little comment, you have to work really, really hard to make that happen. That wasn't, only 3% are going to do this. Only, he didn't do any of that making it harder than it is. Just, you can do it. It's going to be very hard. You're going to have to work on it. But he basically said, you can do it. He didn't say it in those words. But just by saying, you're going to have to work really hard to make that happen. That's a very positive statement.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
The subconscious teaching inside that statement. And I can hear his voice saying it. I lost my father very young, and those are some of the important things. Some of the important gifts that he left me was this kind of you can do it, but you're going to have to work very hard. He didn't say it. He just said, you're going to have to work really hard to make that happen.
But that's kind of common sense with anything you do in
You
life.
know, but you have to realize, when I was a young girl going and interviewing colleges, Drexel Institute of Technology said to me in front of my parents, we'd love to have you, but you're a girl.
She's a girl. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No,
we'd admit you, but you're a girl.
Yeah.
Nowadays they couldn't say that. They can still obviously accomplish it because there's so many different ways to figure out who, what. Talk about prejudice and stuff like that. There's an experiment that's been done that interviewers will tend to hire people with quote unquote white names like John and David, right? But if you come in with Obuku or Tisano or some other name that sounds a little ethnic, or Dante or something like that, much harder to get that same job. That it's even subconscious on the reviewer, the person who's reviewing your resume. And they've done those experiments where they'll send in the exact resume, just a different name.
Wow.
And, one gets called for an interview and the other one doesn't.
Well, that's interesting you say that. CNBC last night had a news story about a lady who was selling her condo, and this is like someplace like Cleveland or something, and she had mentioned to someone, a real estate agent, I guess, that she happened to be black. So they came with one appraisal of $159,000. A second one came through when she said, she happened to be black. Third one, she didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And the house sold for $289,000.
Yeah.
It's like, wait a minute.
Yeah, there's a whole layer, both male-female issues.
Yep.
Different prices given to different genders, different prices given to humans with different skin color. And there's one human race. I'm sorry, it's one God who creates one universe. And it would be a really, how can I say, it doesn't fit with a loving God for any religion, and all religions teach that God is loving. It wouldn't fit with a loving God for God to purposely set people up to fail. I mean, that's just, yeah.
That doesn't make sense.
That does not make sense. That everybody has challenges, yes. So here's a phrase that, I've been working with a number of people this week, and I'll pass it on here. There's that old phrase that people use, God doesn't give you anything that you can't handle, and they don't add that little piece, with help, on the end of it. You're not meant to handle it alone. You're meant to get help. We are social animals. We need help from each other. And God, here's the other thing that I live by, and God does not make junk.
Mm-hmm.
And people say, well, does God make mistakes? It's not that mistakes is the wrong word. That's a judgment word. God gives challenges to people to help them become who and what they can be. Because if it wasn't for your challenges, if it wasn't for the tensions and conflicts in your life, you would not grow.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be content to sit on the couch and do nothing. So the parents who try to...
I'm ready for that. Oh.
That's when you go to seed. And for the parents who do that to their children, who do everything for the kid, you are cheating your child. You are cheating them of basic life skills. Because it's only by challenges and conflicts that kids learn to have respect for each other, that they learn to have empathy and compassion. It's only from, one of my mentors, Rabbi Zalman Schechter Shalomi, always said, when you go to help somebody, stop for a minute and find the place in you that hurts as close as you can find. And from that hurt, talk to them.
Wow. Interesting. I got to ask you a question, though. It's like you're a girl. You want to be a rabbi.
Yeah.
And are your models? Who are your mentors, if you will? Because I would imagine back in the day, there weren't many women rabbis.
No, when I first started, because back when the dinosaurs roamed in the backyard, when I very first started, the Reform had one or two, and Reconstructionist had one or two, and it was just a matter of working my way into it. And Charlie, you've called back again. Have I gone somewhere you didn't expect me? Thank you for calling back.
Here I am. I love the direction of the conversation, and it reminds me of kind of what's going on. And I don't want to get into politics, but government is attempting to do exactly what you were alluding to, which is, hey, you could sit on the couch. It's no problem. You don't feel like working? We'll pay you not to work. There are many states that are now saying to our present administration, we don't want that extra money. We want our people to get out there and work.
I hear you, Charlie. So
contribute.
Okay, so let me go ahead and bite that Pandora's box for a moment. Charlie, for my Facebook followers, Charlie is talking about the incentives and whether or not it pays more for people to sit on the couch. So, and bear with me, Charlie. Thank you for mentioning that. Thank you for bringing it up. Let us remember that first incentive happened under a previous administration, and it's only this is the next round. We had one round of it last year. These are attempts at trying to put some cash into the economy. And I don't care if it's a Republican or a Democrat who's in the Oval Office.
Oh, I totally agree.
The idea of incentive, and there's always going to be somebody who benefits and somebody who doesn't. We have paid farmers to not grow food for a long time.
I know, but Rabbi, right now, if you recall, they decided we'll just help out black farmers. That represents 2% of the farmers. And again,
I've not heard that it's just black farmers.
Color.
I've not heard that it's just black farmers that get help.
Well, it's true.
No, it's not, sir. No, it's not. I know far too many farmers who have been paid to not grow crops, and they've been all different colors, shapes, and sizes. So no, that's an urban legend that it's just blacks. Far too many people are paid not to, and far too many crops get just burnt up and not taken to market. And part of the reason for that program is to keep the cost, not to keep the cost, but to keep the price of product high enough that those who are working the fields and growing the food earn a reasonable living. Farmers are among the poorest, except when you get to the big conglomerate farms. But
yeah, and we saw a bunch of those in Kansas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, Sharon, she's making less going back to teaching than she did on her couch, and she's going back because she wants to be active. It's a sad comment if $600 a week is more than you take home.
That's a lot of money. Oh, I'm sorry.
Try paying for a decent house.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And put clothes and food in your kids. That's minimum wage. And I understand both sides of that argument because I managed a flower shop, and if we didn't pay some of our workers minimum wage, it would have been very hard to pay our bills. But the reality is, if we did have to pay more, then we would have charged more, and it still would have worked out. It really would have.
It was very interesting. Again, going back to CNBC, their story this week on the Bank of America. Minimum wage has been moved up to $25 an hour, and they're trying to retain experienced bankers and basically hold on to them
Yeah.
And it's like, wow. Okay.
Yeah, well, and here's the piece that a lot of people don't do the math to think about, right? So let's take a round number, $10 an hour. Okay. $10 an hour for 40 hours a week is $400.
Mm-hmm.
That's simple math. Take that times 50 weeks. Granted, there's 52 weeks, so if you got 2 weeks of paid vacation rather, then that's 50 times 400. It's $20,000.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So $20,800 is minimum wage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. That's just not a lot of money. I'm sorry, it's just not. And I'm not saying that I'm not a rich person by any stretch of the imagination. We do not go out and eat often because of the economy, and we don't do a lot of things that some folks do and can do, and that's why I do all these crazy things to make ends meet. Mm-hmm. Because it is a crazy time right now. And yes, if somebody normally makes $10 an hour and somebody's going to offer them $15, then it takes an amount of dedication to be willing to take that belt and notch it down and live on minimum wage. That takes more than one wage earner per house to live in a decent house.
Yes, definitely. Oh, there's no doubt about that.
It's just simple economics.
Sure.
Right. In Port St. Lucie, I don't know what the average home rental is or apartment rental, but it's over 1,000.
Oh, we have a couple real estate shows here, and they're saying it's approaching 2,000 now.
So if it's 2,000, let's figure this out. If it's 2,000 a month,
you can own a home for less.
Well, yeah, you always could own a home for less than you can rent it. But if you're making $20,800 on minimum wage, and your rent is $24,000, hello, you have a serious financial problem. And so if somebody's going to pay you more, then you can hopefully pay your bills. Mm-hmm.
Well, the B of A, in their big move, was the cost of training new people is staggering now.
Yeah.
That's where the turnover was starting to kill them.
And the other really big thing that employers have to deal with, which employees generally don't realize, are the benefits and the perks and the
Sure.
extra taxes and stuff. You come to, I'm clergy or self-employed, so I'm keenly aware of the sides that, plus having been a manager and having done the books for my mother's business in my younger days. I'm keenly aware of the things that employers have to pay and how difficult it is to balance. But I also do recognize that if everybody, right, the idea of minimum wage is it's a paying more than minimum wage is a challenge for you if you are, and I'm going to go out there on a limb, folks, if you need to be as efficient as you can be on the process and the way things are done. But if all of your competitors are paying $20 an hour, then you will be competitive if you're paying $20 an hour, if the rest of your system is competitive. Mm-hmm. Right, it's, and not paying people at the bottom end of the pyramid, right? People talk about pyramid schemes. The operative word there is scheme, because pyramid, in fact, is a very common business structure. Think of it. McDonald's has one overall general manager who has shift managers who have a bunch of people working, and the person who makes the most money is the general manager. It's a pyramid, folks.
Sure, yeah.
Right, and the poor folk making the minimum wage are the ones who are doing the bulk of the work, interacting with the customers. Let's think about that a minute. Let's think about who is your front person, right? Who is representing your company to the customer, and how well is that person being paid and treated?
Mm-hmm.
because that is the face that your customers see when they look at your business. They see that receptionist. And if you're Hiram Smith of the Franklin Covey Institute does a wonderful. He's got a great video out there, and you can find it. His name is Hiram Smith. Not necessarily easy to find because, of course, that's a Latter-day Saint famous name, but. Yeah, and if you just Google it, you'll
part
come
of
up.
The Smiths.
The Smith.
Yeah. Okay.
That Smith family, and one of them was named Hiram. So you're very likely going to come up with that. But he talks about that one of their concepts in their business early on was to save money at all costs, and so they hired somebody who really was totally inept, couldn't handle the front desk. And finally, someday, one person gets through to him and says, Hiram, the person you've got on your front desk answering the phone is a real number and doesn't even speak English. And they set back and revisioned their company. And he talks about that revisioning, and he realized that the most important person was, in fact, the person who does customer interface.
Sure.
And totally restructured his company. That was not a low-paying job anymore. And it carried a lot of responsibility. It was a prestigious job. And he kind of jokes about it because they went through all the different vice presidents that they had, and when they finally picked the one that they put in charge of customer interface and told her what the new job was, and her comment to him was, well, why didn't you just fire me rather than this? And he said, no, we ended up actually giving her a raise and totally revamping the way our company deals with its customers. And
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. So there's something called disruptive innovation inside the business world. And if we start to really rethink some of these things, I think we're going to find some very, very different ways of dealing with customers and moving forward. And we've got somebody else who's called in.
Yeah, Curtis is on the line. Curtis.
Okay, it's a day for C's. Curtis, thank you for calling. You're on.
You're on with the Rabbi.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, good morning. How y'all doing over there? Good morning, Rabbi.
Good morning. We're doing great. How are you doing?
Yeah, I caught the tail end of your show. I'm sorry, but I'm glad I did catch it. But, yeah, I wanted to comment. I heard you talking about minimum wage and stuff of that nature. Local here in Port St. Lucie at one of the hamburger places that I visit all the time. I got to know everybody in there and everything. And what I wanted to do, and I talked to the manager, I wanted to do $25 a month to the person that they pick as the most conscientious and hardworking and met all of those numbers and everything. And I wanted to do it for a year. And I was turned down by upper management. They did not want those people to make any more than they were making, or even a gift or any kind. And I couldn't understand it, but if they could figure out a way to stop all the turnover, and when they did increase the wages by getting better workers, their productivity would go up and everything. So I don't know why they don't look at it that way. It seems so simple.
Well, you look at a lot of big companies that have employees of the month.
Yeah.
And they get little perks like that. Yeah, I mean, wow. I can't believe they turned that down. Wow.
Yeah, I'm guessing, and I'm really, really on a limb there. If the biggest reason I could think of for turning it down is just that it comes from somebody else into the system, and
that's even better if it's a customer, I would think. I mean,
if they paid it, they'd have to raise a hamburger by a penny.
Well,
but with me paying it, they wouldn't have to raise it.
I'm guessing that what you had was probably, I'm going to go on a limb here. You might have had some folks that were just concerned with how to handle that and keep that, how to set up that fund. And if you were only going to do it for a year, then they were going to do all this work for something that was going to end, and then maybe they were looking at the negative repercussions of stopping it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm not there to ask them the questions that are in my mind.
Right.
So,
right. And but I do want to come in and say that, it makes me feel good when I'm able to catch your show.
well, thank you.
Because your reasoning and your rationale is right on point 99.999% of the time.
Well, thank you for that, Shirley.
Okay?
I appreciate that. Yeah, thank you. So you're a perfect segue. I'm gonna skip off of that and appreciate your comment about my show. So, folks, if you do enjoy listening, if you like what you hear, if this stimulates you, if it interests you, please consider sponsoring an episode or a part of an episode. Please give the station a call at 772-340-1590 and sponsor Ask a Rabbi. We are looking for sponsors for the show. That would help us a lot to be able to continue the show.
Great idea on the part of what Curtis had.
Yeah.
That he frequents a place, and nice to give him a little perk.
Yeah,
it would be. I would imagine, especially if it's like a big franchise operation, that there could be.
I can see where there might be some repercussions,
corporate ramifications.
Yeah, and where managers may not really be managers.
Right.
Lower level management at an individual store may not have much freedom on how and what their managing might be mostly shift management rather than everything else. They might be dictated, you do this, you do that, but make sure you cover the store.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of questions there. There's the argument about the differences between some of the big box stores that pay their employees higher wages and those that don't. And it is a big question. It is a big issue, and we don't have all the answers. But Charles,
this is Curtis.
Curtis, rather. Curtis is right. When people make a little bit more money, not a lot more money, and that's kind of an interesting thing too. One of the things that psychology has discovered through experiments is that if the compensation is too great for what's being done, it unhinges the ethics from the actions.
Ooh.
And then achieving that bonus becomes the be all and end all, and sometimes actually harms the company, a la Enron.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So some things to ponder. I hope this has been a stimulating show for everyone. We've certainly talked about psychology and business along with scripture. This has been Ask a Rabbi. This is Rabbi Shafir Lobb for Congregation Eitz Chayim. Please look for us on www.eitzchayim.org or on Facebook. Thank you, and hopefully we'll see you next week, God willing, at 11:05 Eastern.
You've been listening to Ask a Rabbi right here on WPSL, Port St. Lucie, talking the Treasure Coast webcaster to the world on TuneIn worldwide.
This is CBS News